What's up, everybody? Weston here with the Hidden Gibbon, and I got a question for you. We all have, a Precon probably at home, right? Like, I have Kilo here, I have Hearthhome, I've got Y'shtola over there, and a few others. And, for the most part, you get a pretty good bang for your buck out of your commander decks. But commander decks, in general, start out at bracket 2, and they're a great place for people to learn commander, right? Hearthhome here. Some are more complicated than others, obviously. But what if commander decks came with an insert that, one, explained the bracket system to folks, right? And just like a little card, like you can put Rachel Weeks's little system on there where it just explains what the bracket system is for commander. That helps, kind of disseminate that information for folks who aren't on the internet. And then along with that, put a little booster pack in there with 3 cards themed to the deck, and what they would include is 3 game changers, and then clearly define in the inserts what a game changer is and how it takes your deck from being a bracket 2 to a bracket 3. Now, I know this isn't the most realistic thing in the world to have Wizards do, because they're cutting more and more out of commander decks. But I think this could be a really good way to, one, help those players who are starting out seeing commander games, at bracket 2, and then want to, upgrade with one of these many cards here. I also think a second thing that this can do is help alleviate a little bit of the pressure on some of the non-reserve list game changers that have gotten incredibly expensive, right? There are quite a few of them that demand a pretty penny. You have the One Ring, you have Field of the Dead. One Ring might be tricky because of licensing. We have Notion Thief, Notion Thief's cheap. Don't worry about that one. But there's quite a few of them, right, that are pretty expensive. Orcish Bowmasters. That one you probably could get away with because it can be a Universes Within card. You can do all sorts, right? Rhystic Study if you really wanted to go high budget, Cyclonic Rift, T-Pro, etc. But you can put those in there. That one increases the demand for those decks, and decks get printed out a lot, right? And right now what we have is, say there are 3 decks in a set. We're going to say that, well, actually, we'll just take these 2 right here. We have the Kilo deck and the Hearthhome deck, right? These were both pretty solid, but say one of them just didn't have anything in it. And this happens a lot in a lot of different sets where one deck is much stronger than the other deck, right? And that is something that we have actually encountered in a lot of sets. So what happens at your LGS is that those decks that don't have a lot of value directly in them kind of sit on the shelves. Well, if we started putting game changers, these little upgrade packs of 3 cards, like I said, 3, to let it, so that way when you're ready to go from bracket 2 to bracket 3, you have that little bit of extra value in there, right? What if your deck what if Kilo, a red, white, and blue deck, came with Cyclonic Rift, let's say red, Jessica's Will, and then we've got white. We could throw a Smothering Tithe in there, right? There's your 3 cards. Those all have decent amount of value. They all got reprints, and say that card or that deck didn't really have a lot of value beyond that, then you can get in. We still might fall into the trap of, well, somebody's going to put Notion Thief in, which is $1 and something else. And yeah, that could. But I think this is, I legitimately, tell me if I'm out there. If this is like an okay way to try to draw people in to Precons, and then helping those folks who are getting into Precons who don't have those large collections, right? And get those. Now, let's play devil's advocate for a moment, right? Because this is not a perfect system. I know, because I have been playing this game for a long time, exactly what Wizards would do, right? So say with that Kilo one, where we said Cyclonic Rift, Jessica's Will, and Smothering Tithe. Decks, usually, commander decks nowadays are what, $50, $60, depending on if they're Universes Within or Universes outside. or universes beyond, Wizards might be like, oh, well, we're putting these super powerful cards in there for the upgrade pack. We're going to charge $70. That's going to be the problem. And then the other problem we kind of already addressed, if they do it, in an unequal way, right? So say, you have those ones for Kilo, but then for Hearthhome, right, which is black, red, and green, if we go down here and they put, we're going to say Braid's Cabal Minion in there, because she could go in there, sacrificing your land, bringing lands back, right? She's cheap. She's a few bucks. And then you put Underworld Breach in there. Also not that expensive of a card. And then for green, you put Crop Rotation in, and Crop Rotation's also super cheap. Naturally, people are going to gravitate towards the Kilo Apogee Mind deck with its Psych Rift, its Smothering Tithe, and its Jessica's Will over the other ones. So you got to kind of balance out the ones that you want. But I think that it is a really good way to introduce having an insert into your into the decks that explains the bracket system. That is actually one of the biggest things I think that Wizards has been missing on since the implementation of the bracket system. Is we hear all the time, and I hear all the time, and I know a lot of folks who just do not engage with Magic on the internet at all, right? They aren't on Blue Sky or Reddit or Twitter, or they don't watch YouTube videos of them, right? They just go to their local game store and they play. And for those folks, it's hard to get information to them about changes to Magic, right? Sometimes that comes from them if they're playing at their kitchen table, they're never going to know. However, if we start putting that insert in with these packs, so I guess this is kind of like a two-part thing, right? One, I think we should start adding little upgrade packs into our Commander Precons, so that way a player can play at Bracket 2 or Bracket 3 right out of the box. I think that is a great way, especially for those newer players starting at that Bracket 2 and then graduating into Bracket 3. That is a great thing. I think that can be done. And then that second part of, just that it's... I'm sorry I don't have scripted videos. I always speak from the heart. I just think that it's a really good way to teach people about these changes in Magic. Because I've done a poll a while ago about like the bracket system, and there are people who just flat out don't use it. But I know that there are people out there who don't know about it. There's a few folks at my work who play Magic here and there, and I've asked them about like their decks and stuff when they say that they play Commander, and they say what the Commander is, and I'm like, oh, well, what bracket is it? And I've had somebody look at me and not know what I was talking about. And we've had the bracket system around for more than a year. And what they say is they just go and they buy a Precon, and then they just play with the Precon. And that's cool. But that's a whole section of individuals who are just not getting exposed to the bracket system. And the bracket system can change, right? So you can put edits into like updated cards in there, right? It really doesn't take that much to put a piece of paper that big or like a laminated thing in the box that just explains the bracket system and game changers. But yeah, let me know what you think about both of these ideas. One, what do you think about the idea of putting Precons coming with a 3-card game changer upgrade pack? Obviously, we can't do reserve list cards because we live in a sad reality where reserve list cards are just never going to be reprinted, and eventually there will be none of them left. And anybody who tells you otherwise is fooling you, because every single year more of them get lost, destroyed, etc. And there are still a lot out there, but they will eventually run out. Or two, let me know what you think about the idea of adding an insert into Precons to help teach people about the bracket system, to disseminate that information to the larger Magic community, the kitchen table community, the folks who aren't online. And, I'm online, right? Like, I'm in probably the minority of Magic players. I create content for Magic. I do it as a hobby more than anything else because I love talking about Magic, but that makes me in a very niche section of the Magic community. But let me know what you think in the comments down below about both of these things. And Also, if you think that I'm doing a good job, feel free to subscribe. I always feel awkward asking that. I always feel guilty about that. You don't have to if you don't want to. And if you could, let me know how I'm doing with these discussion videos. Like I said, I can't really do scripts because when I try to like read off a script or memorize a script, I stutter. It just doesn't sound good, and it's embarrassing, honestly. So I kind of talk from the heart, which, some people like it, some people don't. I don't have the high production value, but let me know how you're liking it. If there's a topic you'd like me to share my opinion on, I'm more than happy to do so. I love the aspect of my channel that it's kind of community run, and the fact that folks give deck tech ideas to do. Actually, somebody just reached out to me on Discord, and they just, for fun, build so many decks on Moxfield, and they said they'd be happy to have me like feature some of their decks, and so I'm absolutely going to do that. When I get back from Michigan from my in-laws, I'm going to start sifting through that Moxfield, making sure that that person gets their proper credit, and it's gonna be a great time. And if you want to see one of your decks featured, I'm more than happy to do that, because at the end of the day, I love talking about Magic, whether it's something I do, whether it's something you do. Everything about Magic has always brought me joy and happiness, even the bumps in the road like the Dan Secret Lair. But yeah, as always, I'm Weston with the Hidden Gibbon. I'll let you know how Michigan goes. I always like stopping at I think it's like Galaxy Collectibles and Games in Grand Rapids. I love that store. But I hope you all have a wonderful day.